Hey everyone, it's Health and Soul Cafe podcast. My name is Zaikha Kayloni, and I'm going to be your host today. This is going to be the second episode, and today we're going to be talking about mental health times healthcare. So today I have two guests. You can go ahead and introduce yourselves.
Hello, I'm Javae. I am a registered nurse. I am in the field of ICU, intensive care unit. I take care of some of the sickest people that you can take care of.
Okay.
Hello, I'm Dr. Freeman-Jones, and I am a nurse as well. Also, a doctor of nursing practice, which promotes people to understand a nurse practitioner. And I take care of a variety of patients. I do both roles, dual roles. I still practice as a registered nurse, conscious sedation under image guidance. So I am a sedation nurse as well as I am a cardiology nurse practitioner.
Okay. Yep. So you guys are pretty, stuck in your career. Pretty much, you've been doing it a long time. So I would say what motivated me to do this topic was, of course, mental health has become such a popular thing within the past few years, especially after COVID. However, I think more people are paying more attention to their mental health versus a couple years ago. This episode also, I would say I called it Mental Health Times Nursing. So I just kind of want to give a brief, background story on why I chose for you guys to come in as nurses and doctors. I know you started as a nurse and then you kind of, elevated into a doctor. Initially, I know in the first episode, I talk about growing up in my childhood and also just kind of talking about graduating high school and what I did after high school. Of course, we all, some people, they don't go to school or they, kind of branch off to just working. I did start off as a nursing student. And from there, that was always supposed to be my plan B, though. Being a nurse was my plan B because I knew that music everybody doesn't make it in the entertainment world as far as being a basketball player or actor or whatever. So nursing was always my go-to, and that's what I actually pursued in school. As well, I would say I've been knowing Dr. Deanna all of my life, so I kind of looked at her like, oh, okay, I like that, and she seems pretty cool. Her career seems pretty nice. She's always pretty much well taken care of, so she was kind of a role model to me as, wanting to be a nurse. And I kind of had another family member that was a nurse as well that kind of motivated me, like, oh, it's not that easy, but it's not that hard, and I also have support, if I need support, like, or books or anything I need to know, I I can always call them. So I did, I started off in a junior college, just doing the regular prereqs, and I did make it very far. However, I stopped because I kept, listening to other people and their stories, like, oh, you just go ahead and do the LPN and then do the LPN to RN. And I'm like, okay, yeah, that does seem like a better, faster route because you need money while you're in school. Because I definitely was poor when I was in college, so like a lot of people are. But I think I got into nursing school in 2018. I was in the actual program in Monroe. It was the LPN program in Monroe. I got in the program. I was one of probably 3 Black students. So that was already hard. We have to work twice as hard being Black. So that was kind of depressing. I always had to do things over. Like from the very first exam I had, on hand exam. I can't think of what you call it right now. With doing blood pressures and stuff. I always had to do something over. I'm like, why I always got to do something over? One of the teachers was pretty, she was pretty cool, straightforward. Like I said, being in the program for about 5-6 months, and then I just kind of forget this. I don't want to do it no more. I'm sick of it always, even though I was still, passing and going along and driving an hour on the freeway to get there, getting up 3-4 in the morning. At that time, my son was like 3 or 4. Well, he's probably about 4 or 5. And his dad was kind of in and out. So it's like I didn't have the support I thought that I was going to have going into nursing school. So I stopped my job at HAP insurance company just to do school full time in the program, because you really can't work in the nursing program most of the time.
It's
you
hard.
have to give your full undivided attention to that. So that with having a kid, so it's like I'm playing a single parent role. I'm getting up at 3, 4 in the morning to make it to these clinicals, dropping my kid off, waking him up, breaking his sleep at 3, 4 in the morning to drop him off to my stepdad and mom. It wasn't a piece of cake. So eventually it was like, you know what? Forget this. I was getting into it with my child's father. And then, of course, being at school, having all this work to do. It was a lot. So eventually I think it was May. I started in January. And around May, the middle of May, I'm like, you know what? I'm not doing this no more. The teachers, they kept calling. They're like, what are you doing? You know, it's almost the end of this point. You only got I think it was probably 4 or 5 more months and you would have been good. And you just kind of like, no, I'm not going. But once I missed that first day and I said I wasn't going back, I thought about it like, damn, I really didn't go to school. Like, I really just did all this for no reason. Like, everything that I worked so hard to do. Now it's like, you're really just not going to go because you can't miss no days for real. So I think it was maybe 2 days or 3 days you can miss, or probably really none. I can't really exactly remember.
It's a strict program.
It's very strict.
Yeah, so I don't recall being able to miss for real. So after I missed like that day, I'm like, oh, it's over. I can't go back. There's nothing that I can say. So that's when my mental health kind of took a turn. So it's like I dropped out of school, the program. And it's like, okay, you were in that program and this was going to take you to another level. What are you doing? So that whole summer, and I wasn't working. It's like, well, what do you do now? If you're not going to do nursing and you've done this for so long, what are you going to do? So it kind of took me into a depressed mode. I was doing a lot of gambling and stuff like that, and eventually fell into depression because it's like everybody wants to get to a point in their life where they feel like, okay, I'm set in my career. I don't need to do nothing else, blah, blah, blah. Even though you want to kind of elevate always, even with promotions and regular jobs, it was just like, all right, I'm getting older. Now what? If I'm not going to do this, and I kind of missed my point, that I was trying to make, it was like, okay, well, now what do I do? So I applied for U of M, and I was going to try to do like health management, something in that area, to try to kind of stay in the same field and kind of still be able to use the courses that I had already without wasting so much money. But that kind of dropping out of nursing school and not knowing what to do afterwards kind of led to me being depressed for the rest of that summer. And then after that, it was just kind of like, it just declined. All right. Oh, you really, you dropped out. You really quit. It kind of really like bothered me a lot. And I didn't really have like the support system because I keep a lot of stuff to myself. I'm a very somewhat private person sometimes. And I hold a lot of stuff in. I think I've always been that way, even as a kid. Like, I held a lot of stuff in. And then when I finally felt like I wanted to say something, it was like, oh, damn, she crazy. She's like, damn, you do all this and then you just pop. And it's like, oh, okay, yeah, she can act a little crazy when she feel like it. You know what I'm saying? But it was just always a point where I just felt like, okay, I think I should keep this to myself. I don't always want help. I've always kind of depended on my grandmother for a lot of stuff. And it's like, all right, I don't need nothing. I don't need no help. So I just kind of kept to myself. I don't even think I even told anybody that I dropped out of school when I did, because I probably was embarrassed. But the whole point is leaving the program and not knowing what to do after that kind of put me in a very downward mode. And that goes back to people getting on social media. I'm getting on social media this summer. People are getting engaged. I'm like, well, damn, like people are, they're starting businesses. I'm like, well, what is it that I'm doing wrong, or what did I do wrong? So it's kind of started affecting my mental health a lot, being depressed. I dropped out of school, then you get on the internet, you see everybody doing all these great things, and it's like, whoa, okay. That's when it just kind of stopped eating. I stopped doing a lot of stuff. So it's like, okay, well, I don't know what to do now, but eventually my child's father, who of course I was still dealing with at that time, he didn't really see the signs of me really like, okay, damn, she ain't eating. And she ain't cussing me out either. He just kind of didn't notice. He didn't pay attention, like, something's not really right with her. And that's why it's important to pay attention to the people around you. Because you never know what they may be going through. And I think he was just kind of stuck in his own little world as well. And it's like, no, she ain't acting too, normal. Like I even had put him in a situation where I think I might have leave, get out. Usually like, leave, get out, but come back. But it was like, I didn't do that. Right. I didn't do that. So he still didn't think like, that is a little odd for her to do that. He didn't think of nothing of it. And then next thing you know, I got into like this big accident and it was horrible. So after that, I just kind of started taking things a little more serious. Like you need to be careful of the company you keep, and you kind of need to be careful of the things you think, because sometimes your thoughts can become very overwhelming and over-consuming because mental health is mental. Everything is in your mind. So everything you see, everything you feed your brain, on the internet, even food sometimes, like it can affect how you feel. Like some foods might make you sleepy. Some foods might make you happy. So that's kind of why, I asked you ladies to come in, because that was kind of my backstory on nursing and now going into more mental health and entrepreneurship with mental health related, things. I of course, I cannot move forward without, telling that side of the story as far as, mental health comes into play. And I'll probably speak more about that next episode. But as far as nursing, that is kind of my story and why I called this Mental Health Times Healthcare and Mental Health Times Nursing. So I just want to know, like, what is some of the things that you may have went through when you were in nursing school, when you started, if you can remember?
I had a really challenging time in nursing school. So I graduated from an HBCU, Kentucky State University. At the time that I was in their program, they were like the top nursing program in the state of Kentucky. Like everybody wanted to go to K-State. And so again, like you said earlier, although I was at an HBCU, there were a lot of white people that were in that program, not too many Blacks. So I think I was maybe like one of 4 or 5 at the most when I was in the program. And I actually went through the program twice. I went through the program twice because, and to this day, I still believe that woman was taking my Scantrons and scanning it through the wrong test version. I couldn't pass her test for nothing. And I was studying so hard. And I'm just like, how am I not passing her test? Like, this is not making sense. Like, what is going on? So that whole thing, I went through the program. I had to go through twice. The second time I went through, I was pregnant. And then my father got sick and died while I was still in school. I remember, like, I would go back to Kentucky, take an exam, and, like, turn around and go back home and just to be with my dad. And my instructors found out about it, and they're like, oh my gosh, like, no. Like, the instructors that I had, oh my gosh, those were like my fairy godmothers. Those 2 women, my psych instructor and my med surg instructor, Miss Broadus and Miss McCoy, those 2 women saved me in that program. Like, oh my gosh, I was so thankful for them. So I was able, which would have never been able to happen if I didn't have them, I was able to stay with my dad until everything was done and over. And when I got back, they allowed me to take my exams and stuff that I missed. And I am just so thankful for them, because that was very hard to deal with, especially being pregnant. So that was another challenging issue I had in school. And then we had this new dean. I don't know why that woman didn't like me. She did not like me. I couldn't tell y'all to this day. But I remember sitting in her office and she told me, like, have you ever thought about being an LPN or something? I'm like, is she serious? Like, are you talking to me like that? And so long story short, we had that whole conversation because she said some stuff to me I just don't even want to repeat. But when I graduated and I became an ICU nurse, I found that woman on Facebook and I went in her inbox and told her about herself and let her know.
Just had to get it off.
That I became the RN that she told me that I wouldn't be, basically. So
that's what's up.
She know who she is. Anywho. But no, real talk, nursing school, like mentally, going through what I went through, it was very draining. Like I was so stressed out, but I didn't have a plan B. So I had to get through the program. So if that meant going through the program twice, I went through it twice.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And I finished. And I'm telling you, like, being an RN is the best thing, the best decision I could have made. I'm just so proud of myself for like not giving up and not allowing those people to deter me from being what I know I was meant to be. So
correct. Yeah, definitely dealing with grief and having pregnancy hormones and stuff. I know that was very trying during nursing school. So of course, that all relates to mental health.
Yes,
because you could have broke, but you didn't.
I could have. I had to keep
strong.
myself together because I'm like, I know if I let this get the best of me, I'm gonna fall into this depression and it ain't gonna look good for me. So I just had to keep going. Like,
oh my God, I just want to give you a hug. Get away from the end. Oh my God, that's such a good story. Like, I'm so glad. Like, it's such a small world, but I definitely, the older I get, I start to believe in like, you don't meet people for no reason.
Exactly.
Like when he said, because I had already, met you in the past through the Wrangler Girls when I did the music video. But when Brandon Luke, the therapist, who I had an aunt that referred me to him. She knows him. I guess she was in a choir or something with him.
Okay.
He's like, yeah, I'm not a nurse, but I have a friend named Vae. So I'm like, okay, well, I don't know her, but he gave me your whole name. So I looked you up on Facebook and I'm like, I know her already. And it's like, maybe we was already supposed to be networking. Everything is just meant to be. So
everything falls into place.
Yep. And then with your story, with everything, with the topic, it's like, wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
I'd be in situations like, oh, I don't want to do it today, or I'm gonna give up. Oh, I don't want to, do this podcast today. I want to push it to next week. But I'm like, no, let me get it over with. Let me continue to try to jump off the porch. I'm so glad that you made it through. That is a very good background story. Of course, you probably tell your daughter, grandkids, whatever.
Yeah.
So how about you?
Okay, so nursing school, it's ironic that you say that. When I started school, I had no clue. When we were in our time, they just wanted you to graduate from high school and get a job. I think get a job at the plant or at the post office. So I wanted to go to college. We really, like I said, we didn't have any guidance on that. You just needed a career to take care of yourself. So anyhow, I decided to become a nurse, and I'll never forget one of the nursing students who I met. She said, don't let them talk you into being an LPN. She say it's something about they always want the Black girls to be an LPN. And had I not talked to her, Amy, her name was Amy, I would have never known the difference because I hadn't did any research. I just knew because my mother was on state assistance, which was at a time was embarrassing as a child. I knew I had to be something because I had a child. So that was my goal, to be something. So I had met these young ladies when I was at OCC and they were going to nursing. I'm like, oh, how long does it take for that program? It's like, oh, it takes 18 months. Okay, I'm going to do that. So I had I had never said I wanted to be a nurse when I grew up. But once I got into the field and I found it was very rewarding, but it is, as everyone knows, or as well, it is very stressful.
Very.
So I did have a child at that time, but during my program, my son's father, I became a single parent in the midst of the program. And I did have family support that I was able to, the grandmamas jumped in and was able to help me. And I don't think, if I hadn't had them, I don't think I could have made it. But I also had some deterrence along the way where I had this one older white instructor, and cultural sensitivity wasn't around then. So people pretty much can say what they want to you. Because I graduated from my first nursing program in 98, and I never forget how she would talk to me about how I spoke. So when I would say the word ask, she said, you put a hard emphasis on S. Did your parents graduate from high school?
What?
And it's a lump in your throat because at that time, we were always being raised by my grandparents. Sometimes you were kind of they taught you that your boss or whoever, a leader, is a superior. And it pretty much, we were taught back then, you kind of respect what they're saying, even though it was wrong. So I have this lump in my throat, and I felt at that time less than. And I just couldn't believe she said that to me. She didn't offer to help me. She just, kind of ripped. So it really hurt my feelings, and it made me work harder because I was like, I'm gonna show her.
Yeah.
Even though she kind of tore me down, because what difference does the way I speak?
Right.
How does my parents? So to me, you were stereotyping me based on that, which to me had no grounds to be discussed at all in the nursing realm. So I do think sometimes as African-American students in these programs, we have to reach out to our resources because it's not enough resources. I was fortunate enough to have, so when I went back to Wayne State for my BSc and the DNP degree, I struggled. So, because reading wasn't I didn't read a lot. So, they say if you don't read a lot, you're not as great as a writer. So the higher degree programs, you have to write a lot. So I struggled. Yeah. I struggled with writing. And it was one of my instructors, Dr. McCoy, who stayed by my side to help me with my final presentation because I struggled through Wayne State. And when you compare yourself to some of these your counterparts, that can also make you kind of go in a depressed state. So I can say I had some areas where it was really, really close. It was psychologically hard because when you hear people say, "Oh, I published a journal," and you're like, "I can't even get a paragraph written," and that was the thing. Really, I had to learn to stop comparing myself, but I also had to learn to seek help. And what people need to understand, all these schools have assistants. You may not know about it, where you can have someone tutor you and help you. And there was a few people who pointed me in the right direction. And like I said, how you had a good instructor. I had a good instructor who stayed by my side, just told me, put all my information on the paper, and she would help me organize my thoughts. And without her, I don't think I would have made it. Yeah.
It's like you always get that one instructor. I was blessed to have two, but you get that one person that just helps you, just guide you through. Angel. Yes, like you need those type of people because nursing school is not easy. It is not easy.
Yeah, it was. We did have two instructors, and one, she was a little more nicer than the other, a little more softer. So I would say, do you feel like if you went through the program again, you would be, a little bit better?
That's something I wouldn't want to relive.
No.
I think, hindsight, because I think I would be better because I already have the experience in nursing, but going like entry level, no, because as you say, when you go in these programs, it's only one or two of us.
Yeah.
So you already feel outnumbered and you don't really know where you fit in. And I think it also depends on if you came from a family where you didn't have those mentoring. So you also have to realize some of the other students, they may have had moms that was a nurse or, family members that were already in the medical field. So they were kind of already a step ahead of you. So, and like you said, nursing school does not adjust for your life.
No,
it is a strenuous program. You have to be near death to be
literally. Literally.
No, I wouldn't go through it again, but it taught me something too. To be determined and being determined and working through your plan, what the great ending could be. I think if it's not a stringent program, how do you know that you get the greatest? Right. Because if you have someone caring for you, if they can't complete a program, how can they follow directive of caring for you?
Right, in your life.
So in hindsight, I understand why they're so stringent because they want you to be serious because you are taking care of people and you have to be able to follow rules. And I think that's sometimes where we kind of get sidetracked. We want their rule to adjust for us, but it's already written in the handbook. But we always base things on our interpretation. But if you don't have no order, you have what? Chaos. Yes. So, like I said, it's hard, but I understand why.
Yeah, right. Now, with you saying that, and of course, with everything that you guys have been through, you guys know, like during, I want to say, COVID in 2019, they made the programs easier to get in for a certain point. For a certain point. And it's like, well, dang, y'all gonna let anybody be a nurse? Y'all saying skip this part now? Y'all saying it's okay, no test, no this, no that? It's like, okay, y'all desperate. Now, I understood why, but it did seem like they became a little bit desperate.
They did. They actually changed the NCLEX, which I was kind of mad about that because sis took 265 questions on the test. Well, no, 275, was it at the time?
It wasn't a 200,
I
but
took
you
all
never,
of them.
see, it just cuts off on you, so you don't know how many questions
I took every
you're
question.
Get. Yeah.
And those questions, I heard that they made the questions a little easier for them. And it's just like, no.
They cut a lot of stuff out during 2020. I think it's back to normal now. But I think
the questions are, I think they only had to take like 160 something questions. They really cut the questions down, but I was a little concerned about that, like making it easier.
Yep, and it seemed like they cut some prereqs. It's like, dang, y'all that desperate? Because I was even receiving emails, and I'm like, because I still receive emails, but I'm like, well, dang, it seems cool, but are y'all sure?
It's very concerning. The newer nurses that come in now, the new grads a lot of them are very cocky. They think they know everything. And me as a nurse, like I still ask questions about it. If I have to second guess myself about something, I'm asking somebody about something.
Yeah, for sure.
Like people's lives are in my hands. This is nothing to play with. I worked too hard to obtain my license, and I'm not about to let a dumb decision cause me to lose my license. And these nurses come in and they're like know-it-alls. And it's just like, y'all are going to find out the hard way about how you got to like take your time. And it takes time to learn these skills. This is not an overnight thing.
Yeah.
Like it's crazy now.
Because you can make one little mistake and you can kill somebody.
Oh, definitely.
You give somebody too much.
The smallest mistake.
It's very serious.
And be prosecuted.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
I've seen that.
They're holding nurses accountable for like everything. We're getting held accountable for the mistakes doctors are making, pharmacy are making. Like, they're putting a lot on us right now.
Yeah. So I know at Cass Tech, they have a program for their 12th graders where they already have taken so many classes and they're like basically already about to be RN graduating high school. So times are definitely getting better with nursing and school period. Because I'm like, that's really great. Like by the time probably 10 years from now, people will be in middle school able to do the same thing. It's like, okay,
we need
what about
them, so.
Definitely the bridge program. I think we were, the COVID, we were caught off guard. And it was, you had people who left the field because that's the first time we had no control. I think for me, we, in the medical field, we have these outbreaks and pandemics and they just go away. And we were literally caught off guard. So it was almost how the military did it. And I'm not saying it's the right thing but I don't know if it was any other options there because who was going to be there? Because you had your front line who was falling.
Oh, yeah.
So it was.
Now, during COVID, like what was your mental health during COVID in the hospital or wherever you were?
So I remember the first day I took care of my first COVID patient, I was terrified. And I want to say maybe like 3-4 days later, my entire ICU was full of COVID patients. And I remember walking around a unit one day, like we had our IV pumps outside of the room, just anything to decrease our exposure to the patients. So like the IV pumps were outside of the room. So if they went off, we can just walk up and like do whatever. But I remember walking around and just looking at the entire unit, all these people that are sick on ventilators. And I walked up to one of my coworkers. She was sitting in her little pod, and I sat next to her, and I grabbed her arm, and I laid my head on her head, and I just started crying because I was just like, what is this?
What's going on? Yeah.
Like, I'm trying to figure out what this is and why is this happening? That was a very scary, draining time for me.
Yes.
My anxiety, I didn't even know my anxiety can get that way.
Right.
I remember being exhausted, getting off work. I'm like, yep, I'm ready to go home, eat breakfast, shower, and go to sleep. I would lay down, and every time, my body will only allow me to sleep for 3 hours. So to add the anxiety on top of being tired, on top of the fear, on top of seeing the death, the amount of death that I saw, overwhelming.
Yeah,
Very overwhelming.
That was a very crazy time. I know even before they knew what it was, I think I might even myself, I was going to work at the time I was in Toledo. I'm like, my throat hurts, but it wasn't bad. And when I went to the doctor, they didn't know what it was.
Right.
So at the time, I think that might have been like December 19 or so, in early January 2020. Next thing you know, and I think at that time, I don't remember what they gave me, but I made it through, but it was different. It wasn't like a regular sore throat. Because being that I have like a little bit of a background in healthcare, I'm like, I know, well, if it had white spots, that means it's strep throat. Like, I know a little bit, you know what I'm saying? So it was more so like, I don't know, this don't feel normal. But then again, to this day, I can't say it was COVID because I've made it through.
COVID was here. Honestly, COVID was here back around, I want to say it probably started back in October of 2019. I remember patients coming in our ICUs. We tested them for flu. They coming back flu negative, but
just didn't know what it was.
We're like, why are these people so sick like this? Like, what is going on? Like one of my coworkers was sick and he had a nasty pneumonia. I remember him like telling me he went to the doc to get a Z-Pack, all this stuff. And like everybody was getting sick, but we just thought like it's just something going around. Like,
and they were sick over, for a long period of time. Like
versus like a regular cold, it was like lingering a little bit longer. So now, then you start hearing this stuff about COVID, but we didn't take it serious because our government wasn't taking it serious. So
and they tell us stuff all the time, and then it's like, okay, yeah, whatever, smallpox, monkeypox,
right.
Okay, yeah, because it was something else. Was it after COVID? They tried to come up with something.
I think, before COVID, I think it was the Ebola. And then so we prepared. I think the thing was we prepared and we were able to conquer like pretty much every outbreak that I was able to live through. It went away. Based on the CDC guidelines and all those things. I think this one caught us off guard because I think as a medical field, we were kind of cocky. Yeah. Because I'm like, oh, COVID, we can fix this. We can get through this. We get through everything else. How come medicine can't fix it? And once I walked in and to see everything change, it looked like a third world. To see everyone in scrubs like those surgical
like
scrubs.
Like a movie.
No one in the hallway, no family members, limited access to the patients. And the sad part was, it was heartbreaking that I didn't know if I could save you, but I didn't know if I was killing myself at the same time.
Man.
That was the most scariest part, or gonna kill my family.
That's what I was going to ask next. I know you going home to your daughter after leaving work with this, deadly disease going around. You've seen so many people, kids and elderly, just dying, and it's like, okay, you're still risking your life.
Yeah, you're risking not just your life, but your family's life.
As well.
I remember the first day I took care of my COVID patient. I picked my daughter up from my mom's, and I made her go in the house, and I had on the surgical scrubs. I stripped at my side door outside. I didn't care who saw me. I didn't care. Those scrubs were not coming in my house. Literally stripped down to my underwear and my bra, and I will never forget the look on my daughter's face. I know she was looking at me like, what is going on? Like, why are you doing that? Like, Mom, people can see you. I didn't care. And like, I had a whole routine of changing when I left work, changing when I got home, wiping my car down. Like, literally everything I touched, I wiped it down, throwing my scrubs in a washing machine, whatever I had on, throwing it in a washing machine as soon as I got off, and like hitting the shower immediately. Till this day, my daughter, when she walks in the house, she goes straight to the bathroom to wash her hands.
Definitely.
Like till this day, she was like on it, and I give her. That's my baby. She went through this with me. She was so scared for me. I remember her. I remember telling my mom, like, once healthcare workers, like doctors and nurses, were dying from it, I was telling my mom, like, you got to stop watching the news around her because now she's scared for me. Yeah. I don't want her being worried about me. Like, I'm doing what I'm supposed to do to protect myself, and I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing, but no more news for her. Like, I don't want her,
Now, did you catch COVID?
By the grace of God, I have not.
Okay, so me and my husband were like the first team to go down with COVID. What was devastating for me was when I had to take him to the emergency and just literally drop him off.
And go.
Mm-hmm.
And then for him to talk to me on the phone and try to figure out a plan. And he asked me, he said, "Do you think I'm going to die?" And
I think a lot of people were asking and preparing. It's like, oh my God.
And I'm not a liar. So I just was quiet. And he's like, damn, Deanna, can you just laugh? Like, can you reassure me? And I'm just like, because he had comorbidities.
Mm-hmm.
He had, he has diabetes.
I mean, you really couldn't at that time.
He was tachycardic. His heart rate was like in the 120s. His temp, they couldn't break. I said, all I can tell you is you just got to keep fighting. And just tell those nurses to pack you in ice. And you get up out that bed and move around and use that incentive spirometer. That's all I can tell you. And I would talk to him all the time. But and I didn't know I had COVID. I didn't know I had COVID till like October of the year. So I think maybe middle of March he had gotten COVID. I did have a headache and my arms hurt. But COVID mimics so many
things. Yes. Oh my goodness.
And I just, I kept going. Because I felt like you kind of torn as a healthcare provider. Mm-hmm. Once you take these oaths, you feel like you have to save the world. So many of us went out there, and true enough, I wasn't as close to the bedside as you were, but I felt your pain. I felt the pain of going in with the patients, not having a contact I used to have, could barely touch them, standing 6 feet away. We melt in those suits.
Yes.
And really not knowing what to do. I think that was the most uncomfortable.
For a lot of people.
Not knowing what to do, not knowing our ventilators were really harming them. The trial and error of, it's sad to say, to lose people to learn how to care for the rest of the population. I think that was the most depressing and stressful time. Not knowing what to do, because you pride yourself in the healthcare field. Yeah. We're like anal. It's never a no for us. We're like, how come?
We'll figure it out.
We're gonna get to the bottom of this. And not being able to figure it out, I think was the hardest part and the scariest part to me of this field. It's like an unknown darkness.
Right.
That you,
because there was not even like any meds or anything at first.
They were trying some of everything.
How about it was not enough mask at first? Let's start with
masks.
Let me tell you
something. Let me
Somebody got rich off a mask. Whoever.
I'm going to go ahead and confess this right now. So like with the PPE that we had, we were supposed to like reuse gowns. I didn't reuse not a single gown. I was like, these people are crazy if they think I'm about to keep reusing these gowns. I didn't reuse gowns. I stocked up on some masks when I like heard a word about stuff going on. Masks that I seen, I took them. Yeah. I prepared myself because I'm like,
to piggyback off that.
I wonder how serious this is really going to be. Let me just grab a couple masks.
To piggyback off that, if it wasn't the original 3M.
Yes, I wasn't wearing it.
AFB mask that we usually, I didn't trust them.
Yep.
And I was fortunate enough, I have a friend that is an engineer, and I don't know how she got a hold to a few. So she had bought some, so I had got some from her. And then, nurses talk to each other. So we would pass around, and I did not wear the same. They want us to recycle these masks. I did not wear the same mask. I just could not. That's not how we were taught. And so how do you re-wear something you've been in the isolation room from room to room to room? It just didn't sit.
It makes sense.
It didn't sit well with me.
Technically I can see how you could, but then it's in like, it
not
just
how
don't
we
make
were
sense.
taught.
No.
I got lucky. One of my coworkers, her husband, he worked at some place where they wore the P100s, and they were getting ready to go on layoff. So he was like, I'm just going to grab a bunch of them. And I walked into work one day, and she was just handing them to whoever walked in. She was like, here. And I was lucky to get one. That P100, I honestly believe is what kept me safe throughout the rest of the pandemic. Yeah. I still wear my P100s when I go in COVID rooms sometimes still.
Yeah. I know it's they say that the numbers are going back up or something that. A lot of people, of course, ain't taking it too serious. Because the regular masks, I'm not sure how efficient they are with working.
They work. So the thing with the masks, like, they'll do their job if both parties are wearing them. Like, if you got one person not wearing a mask, then you increase your risk of still catching it, even though I don't care. COVID is airborne. It's airborne. So technically those masks can only do so much for you.
I think the distancing and wearing a proper mask.
Exactly.
I mean, you can have a mask on, but it's just a mask. So I think the double masking helps. But like you said, it's airborne. So I think still, even if you are talking to a person with a mask who has COVID, if you have the wrong type of mask, you're still at the same, maybe less risk because you have a barrier, but you're still at a greater risk, I think, from contracting it. But I think we have a better plan in the medical field. I see a lot of patients with COVID now, but I don't see a lot going to ICU like they were going. They're coming in, they're maintaining their oxygenation, they're starting the antivirals ahead of time. I think they're adding steroids as well because they saw that steroids help. So the population is not as sick, even though I know what the news say about the numbers, but I know you probably see it. You don't see as many.
They only had to not listening to the news. You cannot believe everything on the news.
And let me say, the news ruined it for me when it comes to listening to anything. Because the stuff that they were reporting on the news at the time,
inaccurate.
I'm like, that's not even happening. Like, they don't know what they're talking about. But yeah, like, no.
They over-exaggerate for a story all the time.
They do.
I stopped watching the news a long time ago because it's mentally draining. First of all, it's negative
all the time.
Who wants to get on there and see negativity all the time? That goes back into pouring all that into your mind about what you watch and what you hear. So I don't watch the news, honestly. I let my grandma tell me.
That's what I do. Let my mom.
I let you tell me if I need to
social media. I'm like,
or social media. And I'm like, okay, I didn't really want to see that. No, but I don't want to go to that gas station anymore for a while, or I don't want to be over there in that area.
But as you know, I'm hooked on news because Miss Ella watch
every
the news at 6 a.m., noon, 5, and 8. But you're right. You have to be able. When you hear information, you have to do your own investigation and your own research. So I do understand how people can be turned off. It's very, very negative. But I love the news. I can watch
it can be informative sometimes, but at the same time, it's like, I didn't want my son watching the news during COVID.
Devastating.
I don't really like him watching it all in general. He probably don't care for the news either. But like you said, they're going to be scared too.
They were scared, And you think about the children going through their little mental health issues, being at home 24/7. And I couldn't even imagine as a kid going to school on a computer.
Oh, yeah. These kids are behind. A lot of them are behind.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Just from COVID. I feel like in the future, they ought to be given some type of stipend or something for these kids.
They need to be compensated.
Yes, for sure. For sure. Because it definitely put a hole in their education.
Yeah. And how about their social? To socialize.
Yeah.
That was a depression within the, impact on their mental health. Yep. And, you have the students who miss graduations and the sheer interaction because we could not, when it first happened, we only could stand in our yard like it was the movie and you only could wave at each other, literally. So no contact. Could you imagine what that did to people?
Now, I will say I didn't mind it.
Oh, I was devastated from it. I'm a social butterfly.
I am not a social butterfly. I was in my house, none of my business.
I don't like people that much either, honestly.
Were clear when I got off work. I'm like, I like this.
I'm not really a people person, so it didn't really bother me too much either. It's like, you get paid to stay at home?
Right.
Like, what?
Oh, no.
2020, despite COVID, everybody had a good year somewhat money-wise.
Money-wise.
Even though you guys, was struggling, they paid y'all money, like extra money and stuff.
We had to fight for it.
Yeah, but I know a lot of people said they made a lot of money during COVID, like especially with traveling. Like I know they had an urgency for like in New York or something, and they was giving like lump sums of money for nurses to come out there. Because at that time, I'm like, dang, I don't know, I should have, finish. Because that's some good money. I know somebody right now, they ended up getting them a house built from the ground just off of their money from COVID. Being a traveling nurse. So, I mean, it's definitely a good job to have.
Yeah.
However, that goes back to mental health with, you went through mental traumas in nursing school. Then now you have mental traumas while you're actually in the hospital.
Yeah.
Because my next topic would be to, go ahead and conclude this. Is like mentally being around life and death situations all the time, and you have to take that home with you. As well. You may be dealing with some type of grief from you, like you said, when your father passed, or like when anyone's relative passed, and you're in that field. It's like, are you numb now? Are you numb to, since you see so many people losing their lives all the time, like mentally, like?
I think for me, I'm not numb to it. I do understand it's a death and dying process, but I think as a nurse, it still impacts me from time to time. Where we still have our moments, nurses cry. We go home with it, and we share with our family, and we mourn too. But I think it's just the understanding of we're used to it happening. Not saying that we don't care, but we understand the death and dying process. But I think it affects us more when it's someone close and near dear to us. But also we do know that we still have to take care of them and still be strong enough to take care, because nurses are caring. We still want to take care of the entire family, even while we're mourning.
Oh yeah, because I've been in the hospital before. I get it.
But it is. We feel the same pain as a person who's not a nurse. I just think sometimes we just have to tuck it away because we know we still we care so much that we know we have to still care for others and still be strong for them. And oftentimes, really not taking care of ourselves or seeking
the help that we need.
Because we're so busy caring for others and worried about their feelings, where I think sometimes we don't consider ourselves, we run around like machines. And I think that's my biggest thing coming forward, that I have to realize that I have to take care of myself. And one more thing before we wrap up, I think we were raised to be so strong that we don't know when we need to seek care. It's a weakness for us. And it's embarrassing for us as a weakness, not knowing that a lot of times when we communicate and let someone else know, someone else may be going through the same thing, and you guys can help you. That may be the person that can help the person through it, because we were just raised like, oh, John just crazy. We just keep him in the back room. We also keep him fed and keep him clothed. He's okay. Never knowing that, hey, we need to take him to see someone. And, it's a bad, people put a bad mark on it, or, it's like one of those scarlet letters, like you're deemed crazy because you need to see someone, and that's not the case.
I think that's mostly in a Black culture.
Yes. It is. They made us to be so strong that we are out of our minds because we can't get it out.
Exactly.
Because it's embarrassing. Who wants to be considered a weakling?
Oh, yeah.
And which that's not, you think how long you've been on this earth. If you got 30 or 50 years of things going on, you need to have an outlet.
For sure.
You need to know that, this happens to someone else. It's just not only happening to me because I just think I made this bad decision and I need to persecute myself. Because, the worst thing is when we're persecuting ourselves for something we did, and we don't know that, what? It is a tomorrow. It is someone else who's like me. It is somebody who can rebound. It is okay to share my feelings because, we were raised, don't talk too much. Don't tell anybody your business. But that's truly not the case. You shouldn't keep it in.
Yeah. Eventually it's going to affect your mental health. Like I said, I think it affected me, keeping things in. And then like nowadays, a lot of people, they experience a lot of anxiety. They haven't been diagnosed with it. Like me, I've been diagnosed with anxiety. But I know, like, I definitely have anxiety in the wintertime when I'm driving because I've been into accidents and I've seen people spinning, in my life. You know, anything growing up or just being around anything, it can affect your mental health. It can cause any type of trauma from the littlest thing, like your job. Your job can cause trauma. So I think in the culture of African Americans, I believe, more and more that they're becoming acceptable to getting therapy and getting help. Because I know I have friends who go to therapy, and me, I don't think it's anything wrong with going to therapy because it's okay to talk to someone. Like, I don't go to therapy right now. I probably should though. But I should because there's nothing wrong with talking to somebody. It's nothing. It doesn't mean you're crazy because you you need to go to therapy. You just need to talk to somebody. And sometimes it's better to talk to a stranger versus your family member. Because your family member might be judgmental. Or your family member might talk too much and she might tell the whole family. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of people, that's why a lot of people, you know, are scared of telling people stuff and sharing stuff because they don't want to be judged or they don't want their business everywhere. So I think that going to therapy is better than talking to your friends, you know, or even just, you know, if you believe in God, talk to God, you know. So I think more people are becoming, you know, more accessible to using the tools that they need to use to be a better them. It's a lot of stuff out here these days to help. I know podcasts, you can listen to podcasts. I know some people use music. I kind of encourage a lot of people now to express themselves.
I agree.
Because it's important to express yourself. It's important to be whatever you want to be. Everybody else is doing it. Why not? Why can't you do it?
But you only can be your best you. So why not embrace yourself?
Yeah. So as far as mental health being, you know, something that's just growing, like you said, it's always been around, but it's been kind of tucked away and hidden. Like you said, oh, just go in the back room or, oh, don't mind her. Or, you know, oh, she's arguing with her boyfriend or she's doing stuff in his car. But later on in life, oh, well, damn, all of this stuff is, you know, it's coming out now. You know, that wasn't normal. Like now, some of the stuff that I know, like I see girls do now, I look at them, I'm like, damn, I remember I used to do that. Or I remember I did that. And it's like, this probably stemmed from, you know, childhood. Or this stemmed from this boy breaking your heart. And now all of a sudden you think everybody's, you know, a problem. Like, it's just so much going on now. And I think a lot of people are speaking more about mental health now, though. So it is becoming more popular. Like I said, I've been kind of sitting on a lot of the things that I'm trying to do for a while pertaining to mental health. So is there anything that you guys have noticed that's going on right now in general as far as mental health, like, you know, after COVID or just in general, that you feel like it's just on the rise more and more?
Yeah. I get a lot of liver patients, cirrhosis patients. People been drinking themselves crazy during COVID. A lot of suicidal individuals. A lot. The liver patients are. And a lot of overdoses, drug abuse. We get those a lot in the ICU as well too. But I really feel like, you know, like we talk about COVID. COVID stemmed a lot of the mental health issues that are going on now.
Okay.
And I feel like COVID brought some awareness to mental health within the African American community as well. Like people were expressing online all the time how they felt about things.
And some people were away from their families too. I forgot to mention that. That kind of broke a lot of people's families apart too, because you didn't do Christmas and stuff for a while.
That was tough.
That kind of like certain things that you probably were used to doing with your family, you didn't really do no more. Like that really kind of affected a lot of people's families.
And then the access to help, because you know how we were, everything was closed. So if I had a behavior person or a therapist that I would reach out to, you know, appointments.
You couldn't even get,
everything was closed.
And then the people who, to piggyback off what you're saying, the ETOH is our term of saying alcoholic, they lost jobs. So some people lost their jobs due to the pandemic, and that was their only resource. And and so so a lot of our resources were not available because there was no contact. And if you didn't have like the internet, and then we had to wait months for treatment. So I think those people who probably needed it desperately probably weren't able to get help. And so they may have turned to something else.
Something else, other drugs and stuff. I mean, don't get me wrong. People have always had mental health issues.
Definitely.
But after, like you said, during COVID, after COVID, it was on the rise.
It was bad.
Because if you remember, everybody was doing a lot of drinking that summer in 2020.
Oh my gosh, like that drinking was my coping mechanism during COVID. And honestly, I didn't realize how much I was drinking until like that spring came and I was doing my spring cleaning. I was kind of embarrassed. I didn't even want to put the thing out there, but I had so many bottles of alcohol and I was just like putting them in the can. I'm like, ain't no way. I drank all this by myself. It was drinking and shopping for me that kind of like helped bring some type of calm to
you.
But yeah, so I kind of get it, but it wasn't to a point where like I could control myself with it.
Mm-hmm.
Some people,
because now, like when I see people, like even at work or just around, like, okay, he drinks every day or all the time. It stemmed from something. It stems from something mentally. Like even with drugs, it stemmed from something for you to start using.
Like my brother, when my father passed, I noticed he would drink a lot more. It was scaring me for a while. Like I'm talking big bottles of whatever, and he was just drinking it. And to this day, he still drinks, but it has calmed down. But when my father first passed, he was drinking so heavy, and I was just like, oh my goodness.
Yes, grief and everything can cause you to, get depressed and start using other things. I think like growing up, and I think they should probably start this soon. They don't teach financial literacy, and they don't teach, and they definitely don't teach anything about mental health growing up. And of course, once you reach that certain age, you're like, well, what the hell? It's like,
right.
You're dealing with all this, and you're going through all this. You've been through all this life. They don't teach you about grief and how to deal with life, how to get older, as you're growing up. So, like I said, I think mental health is going to become more important.
I do, especially with nurses. I feel like it's going to be a lot of PTSD diagnoses from
in the future
from COVID. Like it's like we dealt with it, and now it's kind of like, all right, it's behind us. Keep going forward, and it's like, no, we need to take a step back and like deal with what we went through. What we went through was not normal. Seeing that much death.
Did they give counseling or anything? Or
they offered it, but it wasn't like they should have been more active with it. They offered it, but it wasn't to a point. I just feel like they should have been more active on site with it. So, yeah, that was a lot of death.
That was definitely a lot. So being in the healthcare is very, very essential. And of course, mentally it's kind of draining sometimes, has highs and its lows. But so I do want to thank you guys for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
I wish you guys so much more success in your careers and to continue to elevate. Where can we reach you if you want to reach you?
You can reach me on Instagram. I am Nurse Vae _. That's BAE.
Okay. Cool.
And you can reach me on Facebook.
Facebook, okay.
And I'm under my name, Deanna Freeman.
All right. Well, that concludes today's show. I will be uploading this in a couple weeks. You can catch me on Instagram as Zaikha Kayloni. That's ZAIKHA KAYLONI on Instagram, and on Twitter, Fendi _2Clutch.